Back in March 2025, Dolly Parton faced something she'd always dreaded: losing Carl Dean, her husband of nearly 6 decades. He was 82 and passed away in Nashville, but no one ever said exactly why. Carl had always kept a low profile, even though he was married to one of the most famous women on the planet. But Dolly, being Dolly, let her fans in on how much she loved him and what she's thinking about when it comes to love now. A year after Carl died, rumors started swirling, but Dolly set everyone straight during a show at Dollywood. She told the crowd, "I'm not dating anybody. I really don't think I'll ever get married again. I believe Carl's waiting for me on the other side. Right now, I'm doing a lot of writing, a lot of thinking, a lot of praying." For Dolly, Carl was it, her soulmate, and she made that clear right after his death with a heartfelt Instagram post. "I fell in love with Carl Dean when I was 18. We had 60 precious and meaningful years together." She called him the star of my life story and dedicated her song "If You Hadn't Been There" to him. To help herself process the loss, Dolly poured her grief into Dolly, a True Original Musical, which hit the stage in 2025. She told people that, "November, losing the person you love the most, there's nothing harder." But having him portrayed so beautifully in the show, seeing him every night, it helps. It almost feels like he's still with me. Dolly and Carl had kept their love mostly behind closed doors. They were rarely photographed together, and when pictures did show up, they were usually sweet snapshots from Dolly's own collection. "I married a really good man, a guy who's nothing like me," she told Parade in 2015. "He's not in show business." Their story started at a laundromat in Nashville when Dolly was just 18. On her website, she remembered, "I was surprised and delighted that, while he talked to me, he looked right at my face, which was rare for me. He truly seemed interested in who I was and what I cared about." After losing him, Dolly wrote online, "Words can't do justice to the love we shared for over 60 years. Thank you for your prayers and sympathy." And really, that's all she needed to say. 2 years after meeting, Dolly Parton and Carl Dean slipped away. One weekend, and got married. Only Dolly's mom, the pastor, and his wife were there. In 2014, Dolly told people, "I often think it just wasn't meant for me to have kids, so everybody's kids can be mine." They really enjoyed time together. Dolly always said she's happiest on stage or when her career's going well, but being at home with Carl, just the two of them doing their own thing, made her just as happy. They'd go sightseeing all over Tennessee and Kentucky, always making sure they could get home that night. Sometimes they'd spend the night at a Days Inn, sneaking Dolly in so nobody'd notice. They never cared much about fancy places. Just a clean bed and a bathroom, that was enough. After 50 years of marriage, they renewed their vows in their Nashville home, just a simple ceremony at the chapel on their property. From their first meeting in Nashville to celebrating 50 years together, their stories got everything. They met back in 1964 at the Wishy Washy Laundromat, Dolly's very first day in Nashville. She'd arrived with dirty clothes and, after loading the machine, wandered outside to take in her new city. That's when Carl called out to her. Dolly says she waved back right away. Being from the country, she talked to everyone. Carl came over and introduced himself, and that's how it all started. "My first thought was, I'm gonna marry that girl," Carl said later. "My second thought was, Lord, she's good looking." And that was the day my life began. Their relationship took off pretty quickly. Dolly lived with her aunt and uncle back then, watching their son while they worked. Carl showed up every day that week, and they'd just sit together on the porch. Dolly wouldn't even let him in the house at first. Eventually, she went to Carl's place, her first real outing with him, and he introduced her to his parents right away. He claimed he just knew instantly that Dolly was the one. Carl's proposal wasn't exactly romantic, but it was honest. According to the biography, Smart Blonde Dolly Parton, he told her, "You're gonna have to move closer into town, or we're gonna have to get married." Carl even went with Dolly to a big Broadcast Music Inc. dinner where she got her first songwriter award for Put It Off Until Tomorrow. They dressed up, he wore a tux, and walked the red carpet, then sat through dinner and the awards. Dolly went up and got her award, and later recalled the memory to an audience at a Marty Stewart jam. That's the kind of love they had. Simple, steady, and real. Dean never cared for the spotlight. After a fancy dinner, Dolly remembers, they brought us our car, we got in and headed home. Carl turned to me and said, "Dolly, I want you to have everything you want, and I'm happy for you, but don't you ever ask me to go to another one of those dang things again." Dolly's plans to get married stirred up trouble with her manager, Fred Foster. In 2012, she shared, "He asked me not to get married. He said, it'll make it so much harder if you're married with all this promotion." That was enough to convince Dolly to scrap the big wedding. Still, she and Dean slipped away and got married the next weekend. The ceremony was tiny, just Dolly, Dean, the pastor, his wife, and Dolly's mom, Avie Lee Owens, at the Ringgold Baptist Church in Georgia. I said, "I've got to have Mama there." I had bought a little dress. Mama had bought me a Bible with some flowers on it. We grabbed Mama and went back and got married on a Monday, in a church. There wasn't much of a honeymoon. After the wedding, everyone had to go back to work. Dolly remembers, we took Mama back to the bus station in Chattanooga so she could head home to Knoxville, so she wouldn't be on our so-called honeymoon, which lasted a few hours. We both had to go back to work the next morning. Apparently, Dean didn't say "I love you" until after they got married. Dolly wrote in her autobiography that his shyness left her feeling as mixed up as a road lizard in a spin dryer. Fans got their first glimpse of Dean on Dolly's solo album, My Blue Ridge Mountain Boy. He's on the cover, sitting on a log in jeans and a red plaid shirt. Sometimes real life sneaks into a song. Dolly said in 2008 that Jolene's name came from a little girl with stunning red hair she met at a show, but the story behind it was inspired by a bank teller who had a big crush on Dean. Dolly joked, he just loved going to the bank because she paid him so much attention. We laughed about it. I'd say, "You're spending a lot of time at the bank. We don't have that kind of money." It was an innocent thing, but the song sounds pretty dramatic. Years later, at the Glastonbury Festival, Dolly admitted she had to step in. "I wrote that years ago when my husband was spending a little more time with Jolene than I thought he should be," she said. "I put a stop to that. I got rid of that redhead woman in a hurry." Even as her fame grew, Dolly stayed quiet about Dean. In 1977, on the cover of People, she described him as sort of shy and quiet, noting he'd never seen her perform. "What we have together is so sweet and good that I'd never want it to get jumbled up with the other." Dolly Parton's always been pretty open when it comes to talking about her family, especially about the whole idea of having kids. She doesn't say never, but she's not in a rush either. She once explained, "I don't know that I won't have children someday, but it's just not possible for me to bear children and leave them for somebody else to raise while I have a career." The woman knows the cost, and she's honest about it. If she ever felt too old to have kids naturally, she said she'd consider adopting. Still, Dolly sees her music as her babies. She's proud of the songs she's brought into the world. "I was the mother of that," she admits when listening to her own work. There's this whole thing about her husband Carl Dean, too. Back in 1981, people ran this weird rumor that Carl was so private some doubted he actually existed. Dolly laughed that off completely. She revealed Carl actually traveled with her when she spent those 2 months filming 9 to 5 Inches in Los Angeles. He wasn't the invisible man. Carl Dean is the love of her life, plain and simple. Dolly said, "Carl is the one man in my life. I would love to grow old with him. If he should die first, I may never marry again. My love is that deep. That's not puppy love. That's real devotion." And she's always found ways to celebrate their connection. On her 2002 Halos and Horns album, she surprised everyone by covering Led Zeppelin's Stairway to Heaven. It wasn't random. It was a nod to Carl. He's got quirky taste, big band meets bluegrass, but Led Zeppelin's always been his favorite. That song became a shared memory for them. Dolly described how they'd crank it up in the car and Carl would almost knock them right out from turning up the volume. Carl keeps popping up in her creative work. When Dolly needed inspiration for joyful noise, she turned to Carl again. "I needed to write a beautiful love song. I picked my husband, who I love, and I thought, well, I'll write some beautiful song about him." That song, From Here to the Moon and Back, came straight from her feelings for him. The movie's character was played by Chris Christopherson, but the real emotion came from Dolly writing about her real-life husband, the man she's loved for decades. Dolly doesn't get gushy for just anyone, but she's generous when talking about Carl. In a 2015 interview, she said, "My husband is a good man first of all. He's a deep person, but he has a great and warped sense of humor. He makes me laugh and entertains me." That confidence and unpredictability, that's what keeps things fresh for them. She loves how they're opposites. She never knows what Carl will say or do next, but it keeps her on her toes and makes their marriage fun. For their Memorial Day celebration, they decided to renew their vows. "We're going to get married again," Dolly told People. She finally got her big wedding dress, something she'd never had the first time around, and Carl wore a stylish suit. They kept it small, just family, close friends, and a few folks to handle the necessities. Everything was low-key on purpose, no drama, just genuine joy. Dolly said it simply, "We just had fun with it." Afterward, they planned to jump in their RV for a honeymoon adventure, a tradition for them. Dolly loves those road trips. Just her, Carl, comfy clothes, some reading and cooking, and plenty of time to be together. Carl's been the muse behind much of Dolly's music, especially for her Pure and Simple album in 2016. She wanted to explore love's many sides, starting with hers and Carl's. The whole album grew out of that. She just kept writing love songs inspired by their journey. Forever Love, Say Forever You'll Be Mine, and Tomorrow is Forever are all dedicated to him. The last two go way back, written in the early days of their marriage and pulled out again for new listeners. For their 50th anniversary, Dolly wrote Forever Love as their wedding song. She wanted it to be special, not just for them, but for anyone else looking for a song that feels right on their wedding day. You get the sense, with Dolly and Carl, that theirs isn't just a typical romance you see splashed across tabloids. It's deeper, filled with humor, quiet moments, and a genuine partnership that's lasted through decades. She draws a lot of her creativity from him, but it's more than inspiration. He's her foundation, her companion, her best friend. And when she sings about love, she's not inventing a story. She's telling the truth. For Carl Dean's birthday, Dolly Parton decided to pull off something pretty unforgettable. She slipped into a Playboy bunny suit, the same iconic outfit she wore for the magazine's cover back in 1978. In a video, Dolly joked about her husband's long-standing love for that cover. "Today is July 20th. It's my husband Carl's birthday," she says, grinning in the outfit. "My husband always loved the original cover, so I was trying to think of something to do to make him happy. He still thinks I'm a hot chick after 57 years, and I'm not going to try to talk him out of that." She didn't just stop at the bunny suit. Dolly gave Carl a framed set of side-by-side photos, one of her from '78 and one from her 2021 recreation. As she looked at the two pictures, she cracked a joke about her changing appearance. "In the first one, I was kind of a little butterball. Well, I'm string cheese now, but he'll probably think I'm cream cheese, I hope." It's classic Dolly, playful, self-aware, and completely comfortable in her own skin. Dolly also shared a throwback photo of herself and Carl holding hands. Carl's wearing a custom Dolly t-shirt, clearly showing his support. It's no secret they've built a relationship that's lasted decades, and Dolly wants everyone to have that kind of partner. "Find you a partner who will support you like my Carl Dean does," she says. On holidays like Thanksgiving, Dolly posted old photos of them together. Cuddled up on the couch, she's smiling in a frilly blouse and skirt. Carl looks sharp in a suit. "Happy Thanksgiving from me and mine to you and yours," she wrote. Those moments, quiet, simple, just the two of them, really seemed to mean everything to her. Christmas mornings had their own tradition. Dolly always made Dean red and green pancakes, and gifts would follow. Among them, chocolate-covered cherries, a treat they'd carried over from Dolly's parents. Dean had his own way of making things special, too. Sometimes he'd sing Dolly a song or read her a poem he wrote just for her. She says he's got a beautiful voice, and honestly, gestures like that seem to matter more to her than anything glitzy or public. They were married for nearly 6 decades, and Dolly's convinced it was their sense of humor that kept them close. She says, We both have a warped sense of humor. And I think humor, honestly, is one of the best things when you're married like that. Even if you have a problem, if you have a great sense of humor, if you say something you can't take back, you usually have some crazy way of getting out of it. It's clear Dolly doesn't let problems or disagreements linger. She'd rather laugh it off and move forward. She believes their marriage worked because they knew how to balance independence and togetherness. Carl wasn't part of her flashy public career. He had his own interests. Dolly kept busy with her work, so they were never in each other's face all the time. He's not in the business, so we have different interests, but yet we have the things we love to do together. So it was meant to be, I think. He was the one I was supposed to have, and vice versa. Appearing on Bunny XO's Dumb Blonde podcast, Dolly opened up about their approach to conflict. We could find a joke to break any tension, she said. We never fought back and forth. And I'm glad now that we never did, because once you start that becomes a lifetime thing. I've seen it with so many people, and I thought, I ain't ever starting that. I couldn't bear to think that he'd say something I couldn't take, because I'm a very sensitive person toward other people and myself. She's always tried to keep things light and respectful, never letting arguments take root. Carl was a homebody, and Dolly respected his choice to skip big events or award shows, so we just kinda have that respect. And I respected that because I didn't know he was gonna be that uneasy, but he doesn't even like to go out to big dinners or anything like that, she explained. Staying out of the spotlight didn't bother her. Instead, it allowed their relationship to remain private and genuine. On March 3rd, Dolly announced that Carl had passed away in Nashville at the age of 82. She shared the news through a heartfelt Instagram post, letting fans know he'd be laid to rest in a private ceremony with family, and that he is survived by his siblings Sandra and Donnie. When Dolly appeared on Today 2 months after losing Carl, you could hear the weight of grief in her voice. She admitted that talking about him makes her very emotional, and that life without him requires a big adjustment. After so many years of partnership, traditions, and laughter, Dolly's learning now how to move through the world on her own, but it's clear she's carrying their memories everywhere she goes. I'll do fine, and I'm very involved in my work, and that's been the best thing that could happen to me, she said. But I'll always miss him, of course, and always love him. He was a great partner to me. The singer has been grateful for the outpouring of love she's received from fans in the wake of her husband's death. I'm so thankful. I've gotten so many cards, letters, flowers from all over the world, she said, jokingly adding, I had no idea Carl Dean was so famous. She smiled, trying to keep her spirits up. I'll be okay. I'm still really immersed in my work, and honestly, diving into that has been the biggest blessing after everything. Staying busy helps, but I'll never stop missing him. He'll always have a piece of my heart, and I'll always love him. He was such an incredible partner, truly the best I could have hoped for. Even after losing her husband, she feels touched by the flood of support from her fans. People have sent endless cards, letters, and flowers from every corner of the globe. She feels grateful, almost overwhelmed sometimes. I'm so appreciative, she shared. I've never seen anything like it. I keep getting packages and notes every day. To be honest, I had no clue Carl Dean was so famous. It's almost funny the way people have reached out. Behind the jokes and that gratefulness, you can tell she's genuinely moved by everyone's kindness. It's helping her cope, just a little, as she tries to keep moving forward.